The 5 CDs that we've done together are all so different. One entirely of Swedish repertoire, for example. Another one of women singing various songs from different eras or epochs. This one has a lot of new composition on it. They're all so different, and different lineups of people as well. The core group has evolved and changed and come back together again and gone away again. It's great to see that the group can produce such great quality work with lineups that have known each other for quite some time but don't always play together. That's probably the strength of one of the main strengths of the group, apart from Jenny's directorship, which is a unifying factor for all of the albums, and Tommy Anderson's contributions as well are unifying factors for all of the albums, because Jenny and Tommy really together are the driving forces of the group. From the technical side of it also, we've had a lot of continuity. Chris Doherty is an exceptional engineer, one of the best in the world in my opinion, and his ability to adapt to different styles of music is uncanny. He has great ears and fantastic knowledge of audio technology and the means with which to reproduce what's going on in the studio. So Chris has also been a unifying factor on all the albums.
The thinking behind the music on the CD is that I wanted to actually reimagine the viola da gamba. We don't only just play 17th century Baroque music, we can do several other things. But also wanted to track my development on this instrument from my original passion with 17th century Baroque music to playing folk musics and exploring my heritage with Swedish folk music, and then to commissioning Australian composers to write for the instrument. It is a very eclectic CD. I wanted to put something on the CD that was French Baroque. That's the music that really stole my heart. My Swedish heritage and the music that goes along with that, so folk music from Sweden. With Darin, I've actually rewritten a piece to commemorate Darin's death, which is based on Marais. The 3 pieces that are world premieres on this CD is a piece by Paul Cutler, a piece by Llew Kiek, and a piece by Tommy Anderson. This CD seems to have a bit of twist to it in many ways, and this is one of them. The fact that I'm not using the greatest viola da gamba composer of the time, but rather Kay Devois, who was Marais' pupil. This music by Kay Devois is almost more charming than Marais. It's very melodic, and it's got something that pulls the strings in your gut when you play it, and I think when you listen to it as well. As far as I know, Kay Devois has not been recorded in Australia, so that makes it quite a special thing for it to be on this CD. As far as I know, also this particular suite in D minor has not been recorded worldwide, so again, another reason to record this piece. The Tombow for John Darin is an arrangement I made for the 450th anniversary of John Darin's birth. Darin wrote fantastically for the viola da gamba, especially for viol consort, and most people know the lacrimés that he wrote. And I took some rhythmic factors from John Darin's lacrimé and put it into Marais' Tombow. I also separated the 2 gambas, so it is actually written for 2 gambas rather than 1 gamba and continuo. This allowed me to let the high solo first gamba part soar above the second gamba and gave me a lot more freedom to be expressive with this music. Five years ago, I met Paul at the venue 505, and I just thought I'd really like him to write something for a viol consort. And I particularly wanted a piece for viola da gamba and harpsichord. I was very, very excited when Paul first presented the piece to me. It had links to Bach sonatas. Both the harpsichord and the viola da gamba had equal parts, and it was very intricate. The harmonies were rich, but it was also quite challenging. For instance, the prelude, there was no time signature, so we had to we had to work within that. Paul also introduced things like harmonics, which of course Bach didn't use, and also pizzicato, again which Bach didn't use. There was lots of sections of cross rhythms where we had 2 against 3. Again, this was something as a classical musician that challenged me.
Spinning fourth comes from a German musical term, Fortspinnung, which means spinning fourth. It's used in relation to Baroque music, and it describes the way the music is almost self-perpetuating. One note suggests the next and the next and the next. And it's one of the characters of Baroque music and Bach in particular, which I really enjoy. We often, among the jazz community, talk about Baroque music. Jazz music uses so many principles in common with Baroque music. They both use a rhythm section. Let's say the bass and piano or guitar is like the Baroque continuo. They both use shorthand notation, where the chords are notated, they're shown, but they're not spelt out. So there's quite a lot of creative freedom. Spinning fourth also bears relation to other sorts of music which I really enjoy. When I listen to Bach, especially, let's say, a Brandenburg concerto, there are passages where it just sounds like it's cycling through one set of material. It doesn't matter that it's about to move on. It's a texture that's created using this, what I perceive to be this spinning fourth or slightly minimalist principle. I feel very lucky in that Jenny had already asked me to write for viola da gamba. I'd already had a bit of background in finding out about the strings, the open strings, 7 strings, how many is enough, and how resonant the instrument is. And so that's what I wanted to exploit in this most recent piece. The harpsichord I had never written for. I'm very lucky that we had Ray Harvey, who volunteered his time to demonstrate the instrument, the various manuals, the stops, the beautiful lute stop or buff stop. And that was like an hour or 2 hour long education in what I could do that was different to the piano. My aim was always to bring both instruments to the fore, so that the viola da gamba and the harpsichord were both soloists, not in the background, supporting each other and having their own time in the limelight. I hope that when people hear Spinning Fourth, they'll take away a fresh appreciation of the beauty of these 2 instruments. As I say, sharing the limelight. The viola da gamba is such a beautifully resonant instrument, and the harpsichord is also. Often when you hear the harpsichord at a distance, it's hard to appreciate what a beautifully resonant instrument it is. I hope they'll also take away something of my love of Baroque music.
What I love about the viola da gamba, firstly, is its range. It goes from a very deep guttural sound to a very high, delicate, but at the same time, sometimes fragile top end. The other thing that's really fascinating about it for me is that it's fretted. You know, when a violinist creates vibrato to help us understand what the note is that they're actually playing, they're making the strings slightly longer and slightly shorter as they move their finger backwards and forwards. So they're going for the center of the note, but they are giving us a slight sharpness back to the center, a slight flatness back to the center again. So our sense of the center of the note is being shifted all the time. But on the gamba, you don't do that. You have a fret. So it's very difficult to create that same sense of the center of the note. And I find that absolutely fascinating. The lack of vibrato makes it a hugely challenging instrument to play, and a hugely challenging instrument to create a sound that is sensible to our ears. I think the sound on this CD really has been captured brilliantly by Chris Doherty. Over the period that we've been working together with Jenny, the quality of the sonic image has improved over and over and over again, and so it's become something we're really striving for, especially on the gamba particularly, but on the other instruments as well. Having a concept in our minds of other recorded sounds from the gamba and trying to improve on it or to give it a dimension that is unique to Jenny's sensibility and performance. There's such a range of emotions. The dance music has such joyousness and melodic invention. The sad music, or the Tombow end of the spectrum, is so profound. In fact, the Tombow on this album is one of the most profound pieces of music that exists. It has such a profound effect emotionally. It's very sad, it's very moving. The melodic and chordal progressions, while familiar, are not predictable. It becomes a journey from start to finish of a very deep nature.
I've often been asked what's so special about the viola da gamba, and for me I think it's the fact that this instrument imitates the voice best out of any other instrument that I know. It's become part of my body, so I've been able to express what I feel through the instrument very easily, especially over the recent years. It's been a journey because I've gone from the things that I really love, 17th century French Baroque music, to things that I've been challenged with a new piece by Paul Cutland, Spinning Fourth, to things I just really enjoy playing, like Swedish folk music and a piece written by Llew and Marais. What is fantastic also that this CD represents every aspect of the viola da gamba, from the very, very low notes to the very high notes, the sad melancholy playing, the fast dances, the chordal use, so we've got single notes use, but we've also, there's lots of places where I'm playing many notes at one time. So in lots of ways it's an expression of the whole instrument. It's not just one level, there's every level that's possible is represented on this CD. The emotions I would like people to take away after listening to this CD are diverse, I would say. I want them to be challenged, which they will be because there's new music on it and it is challenging new music. But I also want them to be able to sit back and just float in the sounds that I make. There's moments where you can really just close your eyes and go into another world. And then there's the joyous moments where we're just having fun, we're just making music, and I'm really enjoying making music with my fellow musicians. I met Llew and Marais probably about 28 years ago now. 2 years ago I asked Llew and Marais to write the Streets of Forbes for the launching of our Swedish CD. I thought Marais and Llew would be a great pair to collaborate with, as they both had an interest in early music back in the 80s, so they were part of that very first movement in Australia in early music.
The Streets of Forbes is an Australian folk song that I've been singing for many years, and for a long time I steered clear of Australian folk songs because I found that a lot of the early songs were written in the voice of a man, but Streets of Forbes was a story that I really felt I could empathise with. So the reason we chose Streets of Forbes for this particular project was that the previous Marais album, or an earlier Marais album, had a song called Lat til far. The melody of that song was very reminiscent of the melody of Streets of Forbes, and as soon as I heard it I said to Llew, that sounds like the Streets of Forbes, and you know, the antennae went up. We've always been very interested in the similarity between tunes in folk music in different countries. We've tried to focus on that in several of our arrangements, and so I thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting, as you've done this tune with a very similar melody, for this album to do an arrangement of the Streets of Forbes. The piece actually opens with another tune which started out as an English country dance, the Cheshire Rounds, but it's treated in a different way. It's treated as a Bulgarian dance rhythm known as the Kopanica, which has an 11/8 time signature. Jenny was very interested in having something a little bit more exotic, using one of the broken rhythms of folk dances that Llew and I commonly play. So I thought, well, how can we put together something that is in some way connected to the Streets of Forbes? Well, it's not a direct connection, but the dance, Cheshire Rounds, would have been done in New South Wales in the early days, in the 1800s. It was a very common dance around the time, particularly for weddings. So in the 1830s, 40s, 50s, when Ben Hall was alive, that dance would have been commonly done, so it's possible that he would have known it. We don't do it in the original style, however. We've applied the Kopanica rhythm to that and just shifted the melody around to fit in to that time signature. And the reason we chose the Kopanica of all the other possible broken rhythm dances is that the melodic phrases within the Cheshire Rounds most readily adapted to the 11/8 time signature, and that's how we ended up with that piece. Another interesting aspect of this is that Koen, the singer, comes from Holland and is performing an Australian folk song. He's now living in Australia, so there's a wonderful multicultural thread through the piece as well, from Bulgaria through the British Isles, Australia, Holland, Sweden, everywhere.
With the Streets of Forbes, I wanted to create a piece that would challenge Tommy and his playing in the way that Paul challenged Jenny and Ray in the Harpsichord and Gamper in Paul's spinning fourth piece. So I thought, well, Tommy needs something to get his teeth into as well, so I'm not going to write something easy, and Tommy's really risen to the challenge. It even has a couple of riffs from Jimmy Page, Stairway to Heaven, a little bit of a nod to my rock and roll background. I love AC/DC, I've been to see Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Australian Chamber Orchestra, so my sphere of appreciation and love of music is really wide, so I love to try and incorporate different styles in writing and arranging.